first of all, I'm gonna start. So this is lightning talk, and I promised Peter that I'm gonna deliver the stage on time. So 15 minutes. Two things here. I'm a very fast talker. If you have anything to say after this, I actually like feedbacks and comments and everything. Come find me, talk to me, and then we can talk about it. And the next thing that I want to also mention is that this talk is not about sharing the information. It's mostly about the sharing and experience, and it's a teasing talk, maybe. I will share with you at the last page of this talk about every reference that you may need for further reading or further information, or that's relevant. So I'm Makan Sepehrifar, and this is how I introduce myself usually in any meeting. I'm a solution architect by day. I work at Code Nomads and as an external consultant in Rabobank. I'm a Java developer by the evening. I'm involved in a lot of open source and not open source projects. And finally, I'm an AI enthusiast. I actually spend a lot of times in the weekend during doing a lot of AI research. But this talk has nothing to do with either the cool features of Java 21, neither the cool features of the OpenAI and GPT-4 and maybe GPT-5 in the future, but maybe have something about the software architecture and solution architecture. So this is me, actually. And as a software architect, I always thought that there are two different sides to a software development or software architecture. There's a social part and there's a technical part. We always think about the technical part, about those building blocks and modules and the components and the relation between them to make sure that, hey, our software is scalable, our software is like robust to every changes and everything like that. But we always try to maybe neglect or maybe ignore the social side of the software development and the software architecture. And there's a lot of rules, laws, principles, like Conway's law, like Tesla's law that talks about the complexity in the software architecture that tells us that the social side can actually impact the technical side, and a lot it can actually impact. And to me, I always thought that when we talk about the social side, we talk about a lot of methodologies, like these agile mindsets, these Scrum, these Kanban things and everything. And those who has already worked with me knows that I hate all of these agile ceremonies, all of them. From the stand-up to the retro, I don't care. And this may be my favorite, actually, quote about a Scrum. A Scrum is like your mother-in-law. It points out all of your faults. A legal disclaimer here. If my mother-in-law or my wife is actually seeing this talk, you are the exception, guys. I love you. But anyway, this is what a Scrum was supposed to be. Like your mother-in-law, to point out all of your faults. But what I have seen, and I'm a biased observer, I have already mentioned that, hey, I hate Scrum and I hate all of those ceremonies, is that Scrum is more like your mother. It actually covers all of your faults. When you go to the implementation of a Scrum or a scaled Agile in a big organization, you always see a lot of people who are misusing these ceremonies and these guidelines, like, for example, never bring a task into a sprint. Very nice thing about the Scrum. But there's a lot of teams that are actually misusing those rules and regulations to go for the traditional way of not working in Agile. And that brings me to the Knieberg matrix. This is a very well-known matrix that talks about the implementation of Agile in big organizations. What this matrix shows is actually two different dimensions. We have the alignment and we have the autonomy. And we always want to end up in here. Autonomous teams that know about their product, know about their stakeholders, know how to do the communication, and at the same time, they are so aligned for the bigger goal, for the bigger vision, that they can deliver a very, very nice product at the end as an alignment between different teams. But again, as a biased observer, I have seen a lot of teams or a lot of organizations actually ending up either here or here. And here you have a very good leader, /manager, /product owner, /project coordinator, /something that tells you and the teams that what to do, and also take care of the integration at the end to just deliver the product. And here, there's autonomous teams who are working on their own PBIs, on their work items, on their own epics and stories, delivering their own stories to the customers, but not delivering a value or even a product, even a complete product, to the actual customer. And Obeya, to me, is like a tool and maybe a change of mindset. I'm not talking about methodology, I'm not talking about frameworks, I'm not talking about ceremonies. These things actually are not in my talk. That can bring an organization, maybe bring an organization from here to here. From where there are autonomous teams, but they lack the alignment on bigger goal, and they want to reach a stage where they are aligned actually for a bigger goal. A little bit of history. So Obeya is a Japanese word, and literally it means the big room. It all started around 1993, if I'm not mistaken about the dates, when Toyota was building Toyota Prius, the car that we all, not we all maybe, think that is the mother of all hybrid cars. And the idea behind that car was very simple. First of all, I want a car that's decreased as the fuel consumption in half. Very nice dream. Just think it's like 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago. And the next, I want to have a mass-produced car that can be purchased by anybody. I don't want a luxury car or something like that. That's not Toyota's strategy at all. So what they did, they hired somebody, a new chief of engineer, and asked him, hey, can you be the chief of engineer of this project? And Mr. Takashi Uchiyamada, I will not say his name again, I'm not sure that I am pronouncing his name correct, was the actual chief of engineer. And there was two problems, or maybe three problems. First of all, he was not a technical engineer. And this is a quote from the book, The Toyota Way, about the description of a chief of engineer. And when I read this quote, to me it seems like he should be like God. He must know everything. He must know how the technical implementation was. He must know all of these suppliers. He must know all of the supply chain works, even how the vendor management works. And he was not actually a technical person at all. And the second thing was that the building of Toyota Prius was so different from what Toyota was building back then, that basically no one in that company know how to use the factory line for creating Toyota Prius. That was the second problem. And there was also a third problem. They have already promised, hey, that by the end of this century, we will bring you a car that uses half of the power, the fuel consumption. So what he did is actually this. He created a very big room and filled the wall with everything that he and his teams, his team representatives may need for making the decisions. All of the charts, graphs, everything, nearly everything, even the information of the supply chain suppliers and even the vendors. In the middle of the room, he put a skeleton or half a skeleton of Toyota Prius, and he gathered all of the experts from the Toyota, from his team. And it started with one fact. I don't know how to build the Toyota Prius. Neither of you guys know how to build a car, but you know how to build the parts of the car. And here is the car that we are going to make. Let's start working on that one. So that was his strategy. And this strategy actually found its way to one of the Toyota principles, visualize control. I know the control is displayed wrong, but that's the mistake of AI, not me. For project management. It is actually one of the current Toyota principles that started with that experience, using Obeya for visualizing your controls. When we look at this experience, there's something that as a leader you are doing. First of all, you are acknowledging that you don't know what is going on. But you know what is the goal. You actually believe in the goal. The second thing is that your job from now on is two things. First of all, align all the teams or all of the experts into collaborative decision making. In a decision making that everybody can commit to, and at the same time, you have already one more job to do. Just go with the strategies. You need to define the strategies. You cannot tell the teams that, hey, we need to build a car, let's build a car. No, you actually need to tell them that, first of all, I need the car to be, for example, very low on the price, because this is where I'm going. And this is what is being done and leading by a strategy. There are three different principles in Obeya that we usually talk about it. For example, the second one is that just imagine Obeya is where the work is happening. The work never happens in, for example, your Excel sheets or in your PowerPoints or in your Power BI reports or any kind of reports. No, actually. When you look at the setup of the Obeya of the Toyota, you actually see a car in there. You actually see a car in there, and that brings me to this maybe quote from a movie. I don't know how many guys are that old to actually remember this movie, Devil's Advocate. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is what I think about the goal. When I think about the goal, I think about this quote. And it's saying that there's a little difference of, in that quote, pleasure, about the sensory things that we are using. But basically, there's also a theory called embodied cognition theory that tells us that as humans, part of our consciousness and part of our cognition comes from the fact that we have a body. And since we have a body, we have multiple sensors. We have our eyes, we have our ears, we have our hands for touching stuff, we have our nose, and we have our tongue. And the more sensors that we use, and the more interaction that we have with something, with an object, the closer we actually feel to that. So it means that if there is a way to move away from those Power BI reports, put something on the wall that everybody can see, let's do it. If there is a way to actually put something in the middle so that I can touch, let's do it, because I feel more closer to this. And even if you can make the goal eatable or something like that, actually do it. Because this is the ultimate level of proximity that you can get. When you eat something, you feel very close to it. And that's why there's a lot of, for example, talks about these kind of jars filled with candies and everything in there that talks about the number of customers. These are the ways that they try to make something very tangible, very close to you, and then you actually see your contribution to those goals. So how does an Obeya session look like? You usually talk about, start with an announcement. What is an announcement? We talk about whether there's a new gear in the Toyota or not. We don't talk, for example, even something like that. Hey, we have migrated our software from on-prem to cloud. No, this is not an announcement for Obeya, because this is a team achievement. This is not a group achievement or an organizational achievement. And it has nothing to do with the goal of that organization or that group of the teams. So announcements should always be about the change to of a progress toward a bigger goal. Then you go for a follow-up actions, and there's something that we call in Obeya the tough problems. And the definition of tough problems is usually very simple. Tough problems are problems that you as a team or you as a person cannot make yourself. So you bring those decisions to the Obeya session, you try to talk about it, and you have all of the visuals on the board to make that decision. There's a lot of experts that can make that decision with you. For example, if I'm moving my software from on-prem to the cloud, and there's an observability software that's taking care of, for example, the end-to-end observation of the tracing, my decision for going to the cloud can affect a lot of teams. And this is a commitment session that we are doing. That's why usually we start with something like this, and then at the end, we turn all of those tough problems to action points. In the next session, we start with following up them. And what Obeya is not, actually I'm running out of time, I have more, is the main thing is that Obeya is not a progress update meeting. We do not go into that meeting and tell everybody, hey, we have done this, we have done that. No, that's not an Obeya. The second thing is that we share our contributions. We share our contribution to that jar of candy. We don't share our own progress. That doesn't matter at all. That can be shared at your own product review, a sprint review, a / area review, / whatever review you have. I don't care about the ceremonies. And then the next thing is that in the Obeya, we usually ask for insight. We do not ask for approval or confirmation. If you need a confirmation for going from the on-prem to the cloud from your own manager, just ask them directly, go for an ad hoc meeting. Don't wait for 2-3 weeks to a meeting for a lot of people and ask them, hey, can I move to the cloud? No, that's not how it works. The next thing is that focus on the root cause. If I go to an Obeya meeting and I said, hey, I want to move to the cloud, does any of you guys actually have any experience? That's not focusing on the root cause. That's actually focusing on the solution. I can share with something like this. Hey, I have a problem, for example, with the amount of IOPS on the on-prem, and we are talking about moving to the cloud. Has any of you guys actually thought about such a thing? Because we are focusing on the root cause. We already need to find the root cause, because root cause are what build the cross-cutting concerns. And cross-cutting concerns are what we actually think about when we talk about in the Obeya. And finally, we commit to the decision. We do not jump to it. So, is it too good to be true? I was thinking about a lot of things, and the answer to this question is actually yes. All of the things that I told you is more like, hey, Obeya is very nice. Obeya like is a tool that can benefit a lot of teams. But firstly, it cannot create common goal out of thin air. If there are teams that are not working together, having an Obeya will not fix anything. It may bring some common goals in the future, but it will not fix anything. And the second thing is that you need to actually have either autonomous team or very aligned managers. Otherwise, it cannot bring you from the earliest stages of the organizational agile mindset to the best one. And going back to the original quote, this is my quote. Yeah, Makan, Sepehrifar, TEQnation 2024. To me, if a Scrum is like your mother-in-law, Obeya is like your weird friend who points out to the elephant in the room. There are two cases. If you go to the principles of Obeya that I have shared here, either you end up with a very bad implementation of Obeya, and it's not the fact that Obeya has a problem. No, there is a problem in that within your organization that you cannot come up with that idea. Or you end up with a very good implementation of the Obeya, and then you can actually see the elephant in the room on the walls. And the goal of all of this is that red is good. Red is actually good. Red is room for improvement. Don't look for the reports when there's a lot of red and you're just scared. No, red is actually good. And green can be misleading, because to me, green is like the color that they use for camouflaging. That's it, guys.
So, welcome everybody. Let's lightning fast get started. Did you ever botch up your Git branches? Did you ever feel desperate and alone trying to find a solution? And do you want to know what a Guardrailing knot is? Of course, that's why we start with a question. What is a Guardrailing knot? And that's not an answer, because there is not a Guardrailing knot, it's the Guardrailing knot. And this brings us a little bit back to Greek mythology. It's where our history starts and the mythology ends a bit. There was a knot that was so tight entangled that it was impossible to see how it was fastened and how to do it. And this knot was situated somewhere in modern Turkey, in the city of Guardrailing, of course. And there was somebody said, anybody who can undo this knot will be the ruler of all of Asia. Well, you can imagine that if you were, anybody knows who this is actually? This is Alexander the Great. So, but that day he was just known as Alexander, who probably murdered his own father, took over the Greeks, and now had some beef with the Persian Empire, which was the biggest empire in the world. So it was like, yeah, we probably won't see that guy anymore. But then he fought his way through the first part of Turkey or Asia in that time, and he came upon this knot. And of course, this proverb had a very big impact on him, because if he would undo this knot, he would be the ruler of all Asia. And he took a very straight approach. He took out his knife. He just cut the knot in half and said, well, there, it's undone. You can say that he cheated. You can say that. But in the end, he did conquer the known world at that day, at least from the point where the Greeks were living, until all the way there he ran into some elephants, like my friend Makan did. And there it stopped. And yeah, we all know his story. He conquered the largest empire the world ever seen till that day. But he died when he was 33 without the clear air. His empire shattered. So you tell me, did the prophet hold true? Did he conquer the world? Did he cheat fate? I don't know. At least this story came to my mind when I made my own mess. My name is Peter Schuler. I work at the Rabobank. I will talk a little bit about you today, how we use Git, how I botched up things so bad that I couldn't get out of it, what I did to fix that, and what we all can learn from this. So, how we use branches in my team at the Rabobank, and this is our team, we have team autonomy, at least how we use Git. So we have a master branch, which is our CDI pipeline, so any commit that goes to master goes to production. Then we make a feature branch, and if we have a big ticket, we make even more branches. We make sub-tickets where we have a branch, and then we merge them all back to the feature master, we call it, and then back to master when the whole story is done. Has some things that work well, so we have every story developed. We can have multiple stories working on in parallel. You end up with a lot of, and that's what I like about the approach. You have smaller pull requests that you can look at and you can think on, and in the end of the road, you have one bigger pull request where you can recheck everything, you can see everything come together. Those are things that I like. Also some drawbacks. You have a lot of branches. And if you have pull requests here, say you make something here that you need in the next feature, which is typical for stories where you work on, you have to wait till it's merged. So it takes some more time. And it's horribly out of fashion, because if I don't push to master directly and merge everything and put everything in production right away, then I'm a big wuss and I shouldn't do no more feature branches. But I like this, and I actually must admit that right now we're working on making our story so small that we don't need all those sub-branches anymore. But this happened like a year ago. All right, what did I actually have to do? And I work with mortgages. You don't really need to understand all of this, but there was a very important thing that had to be done already yesterday, of course. It had to do with interest-only mortgages. We call them EOMs. And the gist of it is, we first had one mortgage, but now we had to split it, and then there were two. And if you have two mortgages, you end up with two sets of interest rates, two sets of payments, etc. So it led up to our APIs. There was a lot of changes affecting also the business. So let's start it. We have the master. So then we have our EOM feature master, where everything will end up. I made my first one. Okay, let's make some changes on the API. Then I can add some new fields. I can tell to the business analyst, hey, these are new fields. Check it out. And merge it back to this master. But I was in a hurry, so I said, all right, let's make a new change, a new master based on this API, and I can merge that back to the EOM master. Fine. Let's go. But then, of course, my first mistake. Let's see if everybody spotted quickly. Can you see my mistake? I also didn't see that mistake, so you're not to blame. Oh, wrong target branch. I went straight to master. I was in a rush. Pull request defaults. Click, click, click. To master. All right. Do it. So I went straight to the master. So now I had a bunch of API fields that didn't do anything. And I kept working on all the other stuff in another bench yet. So, but I'm a senior. I don't panic. Just refer to the commit. No worries. Everything under control. We all make mistakes. Can happen to everybody, all right? Okay, so in the end, all the work goes back. But then I made a second mistake. Because, of course, I reverted the commit. But there were some more features merged to this master branch, of course. And again, I'm a senior. I know how this works. I keep my master branches always up to date, and I make sure that before I go back to the master, I put in all the changes from the... So I'm completely up to date, no problems, no build breaking in master, everything fine. Except that I just put in the revert that made all the commits that were there. Oh, Bummer. I just removed my own API. And everything broke down. And remember, we were in a hurry, but I was a senior. I don't let myself get rushed. I said, okay, I will fix this. So 2 days of work. I tried first this. I tried reverting the merge revert. But if I did that, then I would actually throw out all the other work of all other people. So that didn't work. Then I made a new branch. And again, I'm a senior. I know how this works. I make small commits. So I make a lot of commits. So when I had to cherry pick 70 commits, that was a lot of work. But it can be done, okay? It can be done if you're careful. But then again, it didn't work because as long as that commit ID was the same, it would still be reverted by that revert. So this was me. We had I think the guy who made this picture is actually in this room. He was sitting at a balcony and said, "Hey Peter, what are you doing there?" I was trying to unbotch my botcher. In the end, there was even more that made it worse because we found some dead code. And what do you do when you see dead code? You delete it. So there was this other commit which had more than, I think, 500 to 400 files changed through the entire system. So that made everything is sorted alphabetically, so it was you couldn't see which file went where. And the hard part was this code should have been removed 6 months ago, long before I even started with this change. So what did I do to get out of the mess? In the end, I made another branch in which I reverted the merge. Then I cross-merged everything into that branch. Then I handpicked the files that were actually reverted by the previous commit. And I got them on the first try. I'm really proud of that in the end I did something right. And then I recommitted everything in one big commit and whoops, back into master. Yeah, is this the end? Did I conquer it all? Of course not. Because we were so focused on fixing and delivering this API change that we forgot about our consumers. So they first were technical errors, but this doesn't work how it's supposed to be. Then there were function errors, but our screen cannot show 2 mortgages. They can only show 1 mortgage. So in the end, all this rushing, I still had to end up with doing revert of this big commit. And then after we deployed it to a feature branch only on OTA, we ran some tests, etc. Then in the end, I could revert the revert, and I could go to production. So, yeah, what did we learn? I think the most important part is that you should not rush yourself. If other people make planning errors, that can never be your fault. So, take a deep breath, relax, don't let yourself be rushed. So you can be careful when you select the right branch. And then, in the end, you can say, if you find old code, get rid of it as fast as possible. Do yourself the favor. We did it 6 months too late, and it came right in the middle of something that I really totally botched up. This was my presentation. I hope you learned something. And
hi, everyone. My name is Anwada, and today I will be presenting about unleashing the power of developer tools for accessibility testing. Who am I? Quickly, my name is Anwada Kumari. I'm working as a senior software developer at Vodafone Ziggo. I'm a Google developer expert, Microsoft MVP, and Women Tech Makers ambassador. Also an accessibility advocate, so I talk a lot about accessibility. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's also in the end. So these are my 2 slides. Okay. So for accessibility testing, what I'm going to cover today is mainly from developer tools. So we will focus in Chrome, DevTools. So one of the ways in which we all might have tested for accessibility, let's say in developer tools, is using Lighthouse, right? Like we just open it and then we have a Lighthouse tab. We go and we say accessibility and we analyze the page load. We get a report. It does not cover 100% of all the accessibility tests because it is just automated tests. So it covers maybe 30, 40%, sometimes 50%. But we always need to do manual testing. So, but this does give a good, nice report of the things that we can easily win over. So these are the errors which we can quickly get over and fix it. But what next? So apart from this, there are many other things in which we can test for accessibility, but we can also learn about accessibility while we are using them. So we can use them to debug if we have any accessibility issues as well. For example, apart from Lighthouse, so what do we do other things in our dev tools, right? So in Elements pane, we spend so much time in Elements pane, right? So whenever we create something, whatever markup we have, HTML, so it gets converted by browser into something called DOM tree, document object model tree, right? And it has so much details here. And this is what is basically represented on this website. But how does, okay, this is a bit, wait. Sorry about that. But you can still hear me, right? Okay, perfect. Okay. So apart from this, we also have some other trees. So what happens is that this is what shows what is on our web page. So when we see it, this is everything driven by our DOM tree. Now, there are different assistive technologies, let's say screen readers, switch, braille display, lots more, even keyboard. So how do they get the information? Like, how do they know what to, let's say, for example, screen reader, how will they know what do they have to announce to our user, right? So that information they do not get directly from this DOM tree. For that, there is something else which is called accessibility tree, and that is created based upon this DOM tree, but it removes all the unnecessary information that is not required for our assistive technologies. And it contains mainly like name, that what is that node about, let's say like tickets, the name could be ticket, some description about it, then a role, what is the role, maybe button, link, something like that, status, maybe it's a menu, open, collapsed, and so on, active, and so on. So these are things which are shown by accessibility tree. Now, in Chrome DevTools, like there is an icon, it's like accessibility icon over here. If we click on this, it converts the entire DOM tree into accessibility tree. And this gives us a very nice information about how the assistive technologies might be reading our code or reading this markup. And everything extra information is removed, and we can also inspect for a specific node and see that what is the accessibility information, right? So link and this tree, ignored and all, like div, these are non-semantic, they are ignored, and that is totally fine. They can be ignored, it's not an error. So we can get some details from here. But we can also see it in a better way. It's already in accessibility pane, but usually we see style, computed layout. We don't see much of this, but if we click on this arrow button and then we click, there is an accessibility option, and this is called accessibility pane. It contains lots of information about accessibility. So here we can see it directly, like name, it says that the name is ticket, and how is it derived? This is very important because it shows also a hierarchy of in what ways and what are the properties through which the name can be derived and which one has more precedence, right? So example, if we had all title, content, ARIA label and ARIA labeled by would have the highest precedence, and so on. So sometimes we do get, I have seen these errors in real life where you see that you want it to say something else, but the screen reader is announcing something else, and we don't want that. We don't want a mismatch maybe sometimes, or we are trying to debug. These things are really good because then we can see that how these things are getting derived and how can we make it better. So this is pretty good, and it also shows us role. Okay, it's a link. It should be focusable. It's good that it is focusable. So then there are ARIA. We sometimes use ARIA attributes, ARIA roles to make things more accessible if they aren't already. So we can get that information in ARIA attributes. So when we have something, it comes up. So for example, it's an anchor. No. So I can do something here and let's say, just to test, shouldn't put hello. ever in ARIA level anyways. So yeah, it comes in ARIA attributes, so it shows up, and it also now says that, okay, the content was tickets, but if someone is using screen reader, they are not gonna hear tickets, they are gonna hear hello. So this is how we can see and understand. One more thing which is quite interesting here is show source order. Currently, it doesn't show the order of the entire page. I think in ideal world that would be the best, but we take what we have in Chrome. So for example, we can inspect a division or a section, and we can see the source order inside it. So for example, I think these are all links, yes. So what I will do that, okay, I will select the parent. So this is the parent, and I can say that show source order. So basically it shows that when the user is tabbing through, is the tab order correct, and how the tab order is gonna look like for our user. So if I click on it, we see the source order. So like if they are tabbing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, this makes sense that the tabbing is proper in a logical way. So that is good. So, but if we have used any like tab index 2, 3, I don't know what, like we can do anything with code, right? So that is gonna show up here, and that we can check that, okay, but also we can use keyboard to check that. This is just a way to check it. So we can use source order. Now, apart from that, also a simple inspect, right? Like, let me inspect here. When we are inspecting it, if you see when we hover over it, there is an accessibility thing below, right? So image attachment full, but then there is an accessibility column box there, and it gives us same information which we see in accessibility panel, but it gives us here as well if we look at it, name, role, keyboard focusable. If we are using colors, like for example, let's say, yeah, these are colors, so I can, okay. So something that has color, and for that we have contrast information. In that case, even the contrast information will be displayed, and it will also show if that is okay or not, like does it pass the WCAG standards or not. So it shows the contrast. So for example, look who is, but so when we inspect and we see in styles is color, here also if we click on it, we see the contrast ratio, and then we can open it and see that it's not passing either AA or AAA of WCAG standards. We can also like, you can click on it and find something which is similar, like might have a different, something different in hex, and it still passes. And like these are things which we can check. So even if designer tells us and we go through it, and when we are implementing and we see that it is not passing contrast, we can talk to them and make it better for our users. So these are things which we can check just using developer tools. Apart from that, there are also multiple disabilities that we can emulate using our dev tools. So for example, in this open panel of DevTools, I will say Command-Shift-P. And here, if you type rendering, so we can see a rendering drawer which opens up. And it has lots of things which we can use and test for. Some of them are emulating, like let's say color schemes. For example, we can emulate dark mode, light mode. We can emulate the different types of contrast. We can emulate the preferred reduce motion, transparency, and so on. What I like a lot is emulating different types of vision deficiencies, because here I can emulate that, okay, a user who might have a blurred vision, how this website might look to them. So, and these things are really important. And then sometimes what we do is when we are implementing something, we just use colors to signify some message, error, success, and so on. So sometimes we just rely on errors. These are the things which we can use to test and see that if our message and our information still makes sense for our users. For example, there is a condition called achromatopsia, no color. So there is no color, it's just black and white and gray. So now if we have something which we denote only using red, green, blue, anything, it won't maybe make sense to the user who might have this condition. So these things we can use to test for different conditions. So this is rendering. I should have removed it. Otherwise, we are in black and white now. No emulation. Just a bit more about the user preferences. I just showed about reduced motion. I still have time. OK. So Generally, what we do that, let's say we have to test for maybe animation or for some theme, dark mode, light mode. Everyone has this in our system, like in our mobile and laptop everywhere, where we can set these accessibility settings. So let's say I am a user who doesn't like animation, who doesn't feel good when they see animation. So they can come here, they can search for accessibility settings and say that, hey, I don't want to see it, so please reduce the motion for me. But just doing this won't work. In our website, we need to honor our user device settings. So we need to write some media queries and something to make sure that it respects our user settings when they are doing it. Now, when we are testing, instead of setting it in our system, we can also set it in our Chrome DevTools. For example, okay, so this is just a very basic Next.js app, just their default app. But what I'm trying to show is emulating dark and night mode. So light, no, dark. Okay, so I'm going to emulate the prefers color scheme dark. And then I can check for my website if I implemented dark mode that everything is still working properly and it's not bad, it looks good. Similar for animation, I'm going to show animation. It's a small, but if someone has an issue, please do not look at screen for a while. So this is a very simple animation, beautiful, right? So now here, if we really wrote code as for accessibility perspective, like we took care of our user device settings, we use our preferred reduce motion CSS query, then we can test it here and see, I want to emulate reduce, yeah. Okay. Reduce motion. So I want to emulate the reduce motion. So right now it's animating. I just did it and the animation stopped. So we don't need to again go to our system and change the settings to test everything. We can test all of these things from the browser itself. And this is really cool, which I think. And so next time when you are doing something, make use of all these extra things when you are testing for accessibility. And let's ensure that whatever we are creating is accessible to all of our users. And yeah, I think that is all. And my last slide, thank you.